Welcome everybody to the picnic.
Welcome everybody to the forest moon of Endor. This is episode 13.
How many fingers is that, sir?
That many. About as many hairs as I have on my head.
Just right
Don't
here.
look. It's terrible. All right. Those of you listening on the podcast, you should really look at the video and see how terrible my hair is.
Or just Thomas's Facebook page, because there's a really scary image of it.
Yeah.
People are even asking for it.
On our you can join our Discord and see a photo of it. Our Discord is linked the top right of our website, which is questsandchaos.com. HTTPS if you are care about SSL certificates. Anyway, hi.
So why are we on the moon of Endor?
Why are we on the moon? Because we have an event in the studio. It is for rent. We're doing a live stream out of here that has nothing to do with the channel. Mm-hmm. Somebody else is having a picnic on Endor in like Lord of the Rings. This is the most dense forest like ever.
You make it sound like there's having a picnic. Everything's fun. You're right, though. That doesn't really make sense to have a picnic in a forest, but whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, you could.
That
neither of us talked to the microphone.
That was a budget item from where, like, yeah, this is what we had in stock, and they didn't want to have their custom one built.
I agree.
So, anyway, welcome to episode 13. This is the UnTITLED podcast.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm Thomas Koch. This is Amy Puzia.
What up?
I'm looking. I'm like, where's my laptop?
It's over here, and you have mine. Did you actually hit record on that?
I did.
All right, good. So
we're recording on this one because, as you may have heard in some of our other ones, that one is
terrible.
Needs replacing.
It is. It's horrible. I do have to say that, like the key stick, there's nothing great about it.
No, I spilled beer on the keyboard.
Okay.
So the mouse is extra clicky.
It is. It's extra annoying. That's the beer. That's the beer talking.
That is the beer. I could pull it apart and clean it.
No, no, don't even bother. It's how old is it? 2013. This was my laptop, and I handed it to you and said,
"Right,
I get a new one."
When I was unemployed, you're like, "Here's an old laptop you can have." It's amazing that at 2013, that's almost 7 years.
Mm-hmm. It is
7 years old. I'm still running Unreal Engine on it,
and it works almost as good as that new one. That's not so fantastic. Anyway,
NVIDIA graphics cards. That may be my last Mac, right there. Last Mac.
Well then, whatever. Okay.
Razer has these really cool laptops that they should send me. They have Quadro graphics cards in them.
You do realize that that's not what this podcast is about?
No.
No.
Shilling for free stuff, begging for free things from potential sponsors. I think Razer would be really impressed with what we have planned for this channel on Unreal Engine. That is a super early preview.
Okay. That's if we can actually get anything done.
Right. There's a lot of steps and months and years before stuff comes, but things are happening.
God, that was the most pointless segment ever. Can we talk about what's
Welcome to the UnTITLED podcast, the most pointless podcast ever. What are we here? We're here for Kickstarter.
Yep, let's talk about Kickstarter. Is
it this week in Kickstarter?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know anymore. What happened this week?
The UnTITLED Kickstarter podcast. Anyway,
so
this is all you.
Okay.
This is all you. Take it away.
I got a ping that Warren had backed Axon Punk RPG. And if I do dare quote the website itself, and inspired by hip hop, a classic cyberpunk. You play as a team of hackers, engineers, or cyborgs, AI, and others. Just others. Just randos.
Are there elves and trolls?
No, there are not elves and trolls.
Because terrible sci-fi has elves and trolls in them.
This is true. Like, yeah, why would you do
sci-fi? Shadowrun has elves and trolls.
Which makes no sense. It's like, why would you put magic in there?
It was an awakening.
Okay. But did you ever watch the Shannara Chronicles? It was well, never mind. Whatever.
That was on MTV.
Yeah. When they had music and
No,
shows.
that was well after they had music. MTV turned 20, celebrating 7 years of music.
Anyway, so Warren from our channel backed this. It is, I don't know, it's stuff. So here's the
It's a hip hop inspired cyberpunk RPG.
Wow. Can we just start this all over again?
No, that's not how we roll. So it is. So the original Axon Punk RPG is out.
The name's kind of weird. Axon. I feel like I would call it anything but that.
Okay, that's fine. We should actually be on it and show people what it is. So let's. So this is Axon Punk Expanded. So the expanded version is adding in new color versions of some of the artwork, additional artwork, some expanded, not rules, but expanded content. That's involved in it.
And additional story that some of the creators have developed and things like that to kind of enhance the world. And so it takes place in 2085, which honestly could be tomorrow. I can't tell anymore. Welcome to COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're essentially doing things.
It's infused with hip hop.
So you are trying to be forces of change as the great war of global inequity rages on the streets around you. So essentially also today. Yeah.
So
what do you like about it?
What do I like about it?
Because I've got things I like about it.
You talk about it, because I first saw this 10 minutes ago.
I know. Okay. So when I looked at it, first of all, it's already fully baked. And the fact is, you can get on Drive-Thru RPG the fundamental rules plus a first campaign plus 5 pre-gen characters. It's not quite as much as you would want to play like a full campaign out of it, but it's kind of like, it feels like something you would play at a con in order to be like, this is my new game. Sit down and play test for an hour or 2 hours or something like that. So it's not enough to like be like, I'm going to run a full first campaign, or not a full first campaign, but like a full first one shot with in total, total rules and stuff like that. But I did like the fact that it's like, oh, right on the Kickstarter it says go to not Hyper RPG. It's another Twitch channel. Sorry.
You can go say hi to mom and dad over there. That's what they go by.
Oh, okay. I was like, what? My parents are on Hyper RPG?
No.
God, help those people.
I just blanked on
Zach?
Yeah, on Zach's name.
Anyway, on Drive-Thru RPG, that's what I was looking for. You can actually download it. It's a 50-page. It's an easy read.
How much is it?
Free.
Free?
And that's the best price ever, is free. And it gives you some
My favorite
really
flavor of beer.
Exactly, just like the kind when I take it from you and drink it.
And then there's the Gonzo documents.
Wait, let me finish.
Okay.
So when you go download it, what I like about the game rules is that, and again, I haven't seen the full rules because the full rules are not on the Quick Start guide, but essentially you are rolling kind of as a team. And so it's percentile dice, and essentially you are like for initiative. Your entire team rolls, and when I say team, I'm just kind of saying that your collective group or whatever you want to call your, the players, if you will.
Right.
So all of the players roll. Whoever gets the highest, that's kind of like your initiative. Whoever gets the highest, that's like your skill check. So it's very group oriented, and so essentially it's us versus them. So if you are going to infiltrate, a security system in a corporate building, and
Nakatomi Plaza.
Yeah, that's real 2085 versus from 1985. Anyway, you're rolling against, the guards or the security system or whatever. You roll as a group and then you pick the best. And so the interesting thing that I found is that initiative, it's first, second, that's it. It's kind of like us against them, who goes first, who goes second. Within your group, you can then, if you're at the top of the round or the bottom of the round, that's all you get. So if you're at the bottom of the round, you can go in any order you want.
Okay.
Really? You have no more comments about that? Because yesterday you were all a chatter about why that's bullshit.
Nice look. What is... So... No. Oh, so instead of when I was young.
Oh God, here we
back
go.
in the day.
Hold on, I need a drink.
Back in the day,
Lord.
initiative literally was left to right around the table.
Okay.
Like you go.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
Now there's rolling initiative. You go. You're first. This combat and the next combat you're first. Everything kind of changes. Everything slows down when you do that. This one, it sounds like there's going to be a discussion to decide who goes first, second, third, and last.
Which If you're not on stream, honestly, I don't have a problem with it because it allows your team to strategize a little bit more effectively. So instead of having the person who's going to pick the lock to the door be the last person to go, and everybody's like, I hold my action until this one thing finally happens, you know, you can be like, you pick the lock first, then I'm going to kick it in, then, because we already do some of this.
Yeah.
We're just not in rounds, but it allows you to use everybody's skill set a little bit more effectively in a round space system, you know, so you can play off of each other in that effect. And then the top of the round is done, and then the other team goes, if you will, or the bad guys go, or whatever. So that I found was kind of interesting. Again, I want to see all the rules, but the rules are they just seem simple, you know, and it's more about cooperative gameplay and helping each other and, you know, doing things that are not necessarily rule driven. So I feel like it's sort of I'm sure it's not a reaction to D&D, but it feels very reactionary in the fact that, you know, everything isn't written into a rule. And it was, you know, and some of that is, if you look at the website, some of that isn't, there's intent to that, you know, so it's like we give you some guidelines, but essentially you're going to kind of have to figure it out, which is also, and again, sort of in a big ball of wax for me, why I like cyberpunk better, in the fact that it is a world that I technically understand. And it can be also very much likened to the real world. Like, you can't just do insane things. It's like, these are actual real things that you can do. And therefore, how would you really do them? And can you ask, you know, when you talk to the DM, I would like to do this. The DM should, you know, punt it back to you and say, well, how are you going to do it? And you work your way through it. You know, you talk your way through it. That's how it works. So anyway, so that is my take on this.
Gotcha.
Warren backed it, so I suspect it's going to show up somewhere in our world.
And this is all fulfilled by Drive-Thru RPG. So you get some of the rewards you can choose are PDF versions or basically print on demand from Drive-Thru RPG, which is a service that they offer to give you hardcover books or softcover books based on PDFs that are published there.
But unlike some other things that we're going to look at in a second, this hasn't been completed yet. So essentially the Kickstarter is going to complete, you know, the art in some of these items. So it says fulfillment in December. Yeah. Unlike the next thing that we're going to look at. The next
thing we are going to look at is by the Goliath of the website.
Really? Just the website?
Of the internet.
There you go.
RPG, EN world.
I don't know if it's the Goliath
publishing.
of the internet. I would say, who is the Goliath of the internet?
I don't know.
Twitter?
What?
Facebook? Is that the Goliath? Yeah, Facebook's the Goliath in the internet.
Yeah. If it was an evil Goliath who stole all your information and sold it to the highest bidder.
Is there any other Goliath?
Yeah. There's dumb Goliaths. There's Grog is a dumb Goliath. Anyway, let's move on. This is EN Publishing, which was funded in 15 minutes. It says it so on that screen.
Okay. You tell me why you can't care about this, and I'll tell you why I can. Actually, who wants to say what it actually is before we even talk about why?
This is mythological figures and Maleficent monsters for D&D.
It's a book.
So also, if you listen to
I don't know if you we're just going to go straight past that.
It's a beautiful D&D hardcover tome of legendary figures from Achilles to Robin Hood, Thor to Dracula, King Arthur.
You know who they don't have in this book?
To Baby Yoda.
Zool.
That you know of.
Or Zod. Well, you're just like, never mind. You start with the A's. You're like Achilles, and then you sort of don't go from A to Z. One would think it would be, that tag would be from A to Z, Achilles to give me a Z character. Instead, you're like, nah, Robin Hood. Just go middle of the pack.
Figures from Achilles to Robin Hood. I didn't say A to Z.
That's me. That's me saying that.
Okay.
But if you would market it, I would say from A to Z.
EN,
cover everybody.
So the EN World podcast, they have a segment. They have their own Kickstarter segment where they read the titles of Kickstarters, and then the guest has to figure out what it's about. So in this one, they would take off the for D&D. Yeah,
which is genius, because if we did that segment, it would just be the dumbest stuff you ever heard of.
And you should listen to the EN podcast, because it is that. All right, so mythological figures and Maleficent monsters. So some people might be like, oh, that sounds like a really cool board game. right?
It could be figurines too.
Or it could be figurines.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Plushies.
a book. Yes. All right. Anyway, so this is a bunch of figures that are in pop culture. Like Lucifer is in pop culture.
He's been popular for decades. Going strong since...
I don't know who Boudica is. It's probably me not being cultured or well-read.
Or watching the History Channel.
Cthulhu, Cleopatra, Dracula, all people from history.
Exactly. All great historical figures. It says
Santa
and
Claus,
monsters in the title.
Santa Claus.
Again, he's really a contributor to history. Like what he did back in 1682.
Thor Odin's son. Is that really his last name?
Yeah.
I realize that he is Odin's son, but anyway. There's a foreword as well in here. By my Facebook friend, James and Ward.
Okay.
So, anyway.
The Goliath of the internet. Full circle. I'm taking this away from you.
I need way more of that than we have right now. So this is going to be a hardcover book. Ian Publishing, they are doing stuff. They're doing a lot of books.
Stop looking at the drink. You're just like, they're doing stuff.
I do not have enough.
Okay. You know what?
Energy, undisclosed energy drink.
If you hurry up and get through this, they'll get you more.
All right. Well, that's all I have to say about that.
So, yesterday in the car, when we discussed we discussed the run of show for this podcast, I heard a lot of stuff, and I heard, what the hell do I need this for?
Yeah, I don't need this. No, I'll just throw that out there.
Okay. And I think I do need this, because I lack creativity, imaginativity.
I lack time to use any of this in anything.
There you go. I lack time just in general. So what's this guy's name again? Mike Myers? God,
Michael Myers.
Yes, it is. Also, a great...
it's Morris.
A great monster of history.
Morris?
I don't know. No, Myler, right there. It says it right there. And Russ Morrissey. Anyway, so they take historical figures and essentially they convert them into characters, D&D characters, D&D monsters with actual stats. And so if you go to EN World and go to the blog there, you can find most of these people. So again, just a quick cheat. You don't necessarily have to spend $50 or $15 on the PDF. You can actually get the stats for Santa if you just go to the website or go to the blog. Because you know what I did yesterday was dig for the free version. But then I backed it anyway. You're going to punch me, aren't you?
I didn't...
just saying.
Why would I? Have I ever?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I accidentally punched you the other day, but that was a complete...
Right in the eye. Right in the eye.
That was amazing. I didn't even...
And then you kept saying, oh my God, I thought I hit you in the nose. I'm like, yeah, you hit me in the eye.
I was more concerned about accidentally breaking your nose than punching you in the eye. Anyway, what were we talking about?
I don't know. And then I played it off. I'm like, oh, I'm going to lose this thing. I can't. Everything's blurry.
It was ridiculous.
I was like, everything's blurry. I can't see anything. You're like, do you have your contacts in? No.
Anyway, I'm just saying that if you wanted to, I don't know, like I wanted to come up with an RPG using Mr. Rourke and Tattoo on Fantasy Island.
They are not in here. No,
they're not in here. But I'm saying, like, when would I have time, much less the imagination or inclination, to actually follow through and make Mr. Rourke the epic lich that he is, and Tattoo the kick-ass halfling that he is?
Okay. I think you just do it. Instead of recording this podcast, we could be doing that.
We should. Okay. So donate, don't donate, whatever.
When we do our Kickstarter, we're going to definitely be as excited about it.
As ambivalent, whatever. No, I looked at it. I thought it was cool. I thought it would be a great source book to just have in the studio. So when people are like, I need this to like come and kill everybody, I'll be like, have you thought of Santa? Okay, all right. Next one?
Next one is something that has been barraging my Facebook feed for the last long time.
I as well. And right up top, I have to say, I can't care.
Correct.
Okay, do you want to say what it is, though?
This
As opposed to being like, give me this.
If you're into board games and you have Facebook, you know what this is. So this is the Shivers.
Or you donate to Kickstarter and you accidentally say yes to
it's all cookie-based anyway.
Really? I should somehow change... You don't even know how to use this computer, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh my God.
No, we got to turn it off.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So this is the Shivers, which Seems like it would be cool, except for when you get to this point, I'm like, oh, pop-up, that seems pretty gimmicky.
So it's a pop-up board game. I feel like it's a little bit more for children. Like, I could see when I was younger, my sister and I playing this.
Gotcha, yeah. I mean, that kind of makes sense. I was playing Acquire.
Okay. My parents weren't into board games. Anyway, and so essentially you're solving mysteries in a spooky house. And again, if you're looking at the video, if not, let me try and describe this to you. It's a pop-up kind of like your laptop would be. And then instead of your screen, you actually put different slates or like images back there. And there are windows in that image to kind of mix up what the actual story is.
When I was really, really young at the Scholastic Book Fair.
How much alcohol do I need for this story? Continue.
There was a pop-up book called Dinner Time. And like every page was the next creature in the, not chain of command, in the chain of...
Are they under Santa?
Yes.
Were they all the creatures that Santa controlled and his evil
What is
workshop?
that? What is that? I might literally be losing my mind.
That's what happens when you cut your hair. You're like, what's his name? Samson?
I don't know. The gorilla?
Yes.
The gorilla was one of the things that ate.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
We are
right
top
now?
of the food chain, not the line of command or whatever I just said. The food chain.
We're back on the Scholastic Book Fair. At how old were you?
It was a pop-up, right? So it'd be like a small creature, and then it was like a fly. Oh, and then it kind of pops up, and then the next page was a frog that ate the fly, and then the next page was something, it like popped up out.
Wasn't that like
a shark, and then the gorilla ate the shark for some reason? I don't know why.
Wasn't that the not I don't know why I swallowed a fly. What's that childhood rhyme where it's like the spider ate the fly ate the something or another? Yeah. I don't know.
Definitely something like that. Okay. Anyway, that was a pop-up. I don't care about this. Shivers. They need to stop hitting my Facebook feed.
Don't you care about Shivers as opposed to just the fact that you have pointless childhood memories? And I don't know if the memories are pointless or your childhood was pointless or...
Little column A, little column B.
Just the Scholastic Book Fair was pointless. I can't even decipher.
It's the best $7 I ever spent.
You bought the book?
And others.
God, okay. Anyway. So it just doesn't appeal to me. So as an adult, I could see potentially.
Okay. It's a family game. They say it straight up front. It's a family game.
Ages 7, and I feel like that you nailed it right there. Ages 7 plus, like take that plus out because.
There's going to be reading involved. Here's the problem. It is not for people over 40 because just looking at this, it's going to be impossible to read that small text.
And actually, as you continue to scroll down, they actually give you a magnifying glass with it.
There it is.
It's actually, you're the one who should scroll because you're recording. But it says 1 magnifying glass. Some of those clues are pretty tiny. I'm thinking that this is something that children, like the question is, does this have to be played with adults to kind of assist the children in, finishing the game? Right. And then in that case, you shouldn't add a magnifying glass because we already feel bad about our eyesight going to hell. Please don't make me look like my grandparents. So, story from my childhood, my grandfather used to read the newspaper with a magnifying glass as opposed to getting bifocals, which honestly, a little genius. And then I caught my mother doing that once. I thought that was awesome too. Nice. I was like, the old man's got it.
Killing ants. So one of the things about this is each sort of pop-up area is a room, right? And there are things in the room, and in the back of it is the story, the adventure that you are playing, right? So you drop it in, and then all the little doors and windows and everything open up to different things in the different stories.
Ooh, I got a thought. Computers. Just saying. Yeah, again, I'm sure somebody out there is going to be somewhat more excited about this than I am, but I just feel like your laptop is the equivalent of this, and why don't you just make a game on a laptop or an app or your phone? Because
this is a family board game to get them to stop looking at their computers, sit around a table, interact, have fun, build the sense of community with your family.
I say
as opposed
go
to,
all out.
Here's a tablet, go watch that, go after yourself.
No, it's not. Okay, first off, so glad we don't have children because go F yourself would be.
Well,
I
first
can't
off,
figure out your homework. Go F yourself.
watch your language on our pre-show talks because there are children that
I
join
forget
those sometimes.
that there's other people's.
The top of her head.
Okay.
That's all you see. Just look for that.
I was busy doing work emails.
And keep the F-bombs to a minimum.
You know, if you're stopping evil and fighting Nyarlathotep, sometimes you gotta drop an F-bomb. Where was I on this? Oh, so technology. Let's get back to my point. Remember when we worked at Intel and they were constantly pimping that tabletop video board screen game thing?
I directed 3 commercials.
I remember because I shot a couple of those commercials. And the unfortunate piece is that never worked. But essentially, I think that this might be better suited if it was actually played around an iPad or a larger tabletop device where the family could gather around. I mean, at least it keeps it a little bit more current and in the ilk of what children would do. And I honestly think that that is kind of a kick-ass segment into Ando Wilde and Houston, We Have a Dolphin.
Is the whole thing was just to set up to get us to that interview?
No, it wasn't, but it just kind of like it hit me that I was like, you know what?
You know what you should do? You should get a tablet and go play Houston, You Have a Dolphin. That would be better. Let's go after this brief bit of messages, if you don't have an ad blocker on, to go listen to our interview with Ando Wilde of Hybr Games and Houston, We Have a Dolphin. All right, so we are here with Ando of Hybr Games. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. It's a Sunday evening here, so I actually just came from the swimming pool. So it's been a enjoyable day.
Good. That's nice.
That is a different take on than normally people we interview in the States.
Yeah, they would be like, what now? Yeah. Because it's so early. No. And I'm actually drinking Radler, like I'm drinking a beverage basically instead of coffee, which you're probably drinking right now.
I've got in fact this is my second cup already this morning just to get me going.
Nice.
Yeah, did you say it's a Radler? So it's like lemonade and beer?
It's lemonade and beer, yes.
Nice.
That's my favorite. Anyway,
we could talk about beer all day.
We could.
I mean, I think we should just jump in right away because you have a game that's on Kickstarter right now, which is Houston, We Have a Dolphin, which we played last week. Yeah, we played last week, and that was a lot of fun. So, can you talk about, I guess, the process of starting that game and when the Dolphins came into play?
Well, the Dolphins came quite late, actually. So, the whole process was about how can we make a social deduction game that is close to the stuff that I knew, and that was basically the werewolf games and mafia games back then. I guess you know them. How can I transform this process into a thing that works with 3 players? So it was quite obvious, like even before I had any mechanic, it was like a very, conscious choice to say, okay, so we definitely have a game master that is not a player, so that we get the slot free for someone to play. And everything else was kind of an evolution from there. So it's a 3-player game that is also a social deduction game, and it has a trader, which is very similar to the mafia game. And when you think about it, it's even close in a way that it has 2 phases. It has that phase where you do something secretly, which is the spacewalk phase, which is very close to the night phase in the werewolf game. And it has that captain's phase that is basically this choice that everyone makes together, which is also very similar to the day phase in the werewolf thing. Yeah, but I think you would agree that it went quite far from that original idea and became something else.
Is this only possible because you do hybrid games like that? You know, were you thinking of this before Soviet Kitchen Unleashed came out, where you sort of went in with this, you know, the game that read the cards and did the calculations for you? Was this something you were thinking about before you thought about combining technology?
So, you know, by heart, I'm also a video gamer. So I played board games for a long time, but I also played video games for a long time. So it always itched me to say, like, how's that even possible that these two mediums seem to be so distant, even though they could have so much in common? So that's something that was constantly on my mind. And in the case of Soviet Kitchen, it was more of a conscious choice to say, let's do something that I can only do with a smartphone, that is like totally unimaginable without a technical device. And that was this color mixing thing that feels so soft, but is actually just a lot of code. So that was more from, how would you say, I think you can say technology push. You wonder about what you can do and try to make something from it. But in the case of Houston, we have a Dolphin. It's different because I came from the game, and but very early in the process, I recognized that the phone could be the game master. So if that was the case, how would that be? How would that unravel?
And when you integrate the technology into your games, what concern do you have about that technology becoming outdated? You know, so like most people with apps, they have to push updates constantly. Like, what's your problem solved for the fact that phones will change, tablets will change, you know, to keep your game viable for 10 years or 15 years?
Okay, so I think the answer consists of some elements. So we are not promising people that they can play our games in 15 years. Like, this is actually not the case. I cannot promise this. We can promise that they can play our game in 2 years, unless their phone breaks, you know, then. But I think people are aware that these games are technology related. So I know some people are very conservative about this and say, okay, that's not my thing. And that's totally okay. And I'm not even trying to pursue them or something. But when people get interested, of course, I'm open to tell them that this game is very tightly like connected to technology, so it could become outdated. But on the other hand side, we are not like a traditional publisher that tries to get some apps done for us, but actually the programmer is part of our core team. Like, even before we had the first game idea, the programmer was on board. So we are like a family, we are like a core group, and there's no plan to break up whatsoever. So everything is in-house. So that means when people contact us and say, hey, stuff is not working, like, you would like people, sometimes we made updates less than 1 day after people contacted us, in case of Soviet Kitchen, just because we are so small and we just want people to be happy with our product. So of course it makes us sad when people write to us, oh, this didn't work. But then we try to work it out with them. Sometimes we ask for their phone. Sometimes we even ask them to make screenshots if that's possible. And then stuff gets, well, yeah, then we get into the process of solving it. And almost every time we could solve the problem. And there was 2 cases, like we had like 3,000 customers for Soviet Kitchen so far. And it happened like twice, I think, that we just gave people money back. We like the last thing that we do is like we say, sorry, you would have to change your device. You don't have to do that. If you want, you can have your money back. And but yeah, people are kind of understanding, and they even sometimes lend their phones and then they are happy, which I'm not expecting them to do, but that's how it works. So yeah.
How was so the Soviet Kitchen Unleashed? We did not get in on the Kickstarter because for whatever reason it was before it was really not on our radar. But we went.
Yeah, we were so small, you know. It's it was hard to get on anyone's radar to start with. So
yeah, and in fact, we heard about it word of mouth.
I mean, Ezra, when he met you at Essen, and then he did the small little interview, that's when we're like, oh man, this looks like a great game. And then we went to France in December, and we saw it, you know, in store because we couldn't get it in the States, you know, because it wasn't through distributors. But we were in France and we were like, oh my God, it's here, let's get it. And then we played that in our hotel room. And
did you buy the French version? Did you buy the version that is like that has a square box a white box. Yeah, it's the French. That's the French version from Igiari, which is our partner. Yeah, he was. He didn't know much about us, but he like kind of believed in the project from quite early, and he was super open to and like basically had to believe us that we would deliver support and stuff. So he jumped on board, and he was not disappointed. He was, I think, one of his most successful projects that he published so far.
So was that game primarily driven by graphic design? Because my French is terrible and he doesn't speak any French. And so, yikes.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't hard to figure out the game just because of it's just graphics, you know? So essentially you don't need to necessarily have to read the language. It's basically fundamentally based on colors and graphic design. You know, was that sort of like the push for this? And then also I noticed too with Houston, you have a Dolphin, graphics are a huge part of your game design.
It's interesting.
You know, so where does that come from? You know, is that intentional at the beginning? Is that?
To be very honest, I think it's not very intentional, because in the case of Soviet Kitchen, it was just that we didn't want to pay a designer to draw the game for us. So I had to do it myself. And I hadn't been illustrating. So yeah, of course. And then I'm an architect by nature, or like not by nature, but by my education, I'm an architect. So I'm used to draw like edgy lines. And it was clear that my drawings wouldn't be like super skillful, fine drawings, but more of this like in your face thing, because that's the only thing I can do really. Like that's the honest truth behind it. And then of course, when we started with the process of what can we do with the phone, and then I came up with this idea of color mixing, which which I think you can see that it's a compelling idea to say, wow, this phone can mix colors. And and once you add the color, it's not far to jump to kind of an ingredient or something that has a color, which must be an object. So yeah, because the project was produced or designed from the inside, this is how it evolved, I think. And to take one more take on it concerning Houston, we have a Dolphin. I think in this case, it is very graphic because of the cinematic dimension that I wanted it to have. I'm not even 100% happy with how it turned out cinematically, but you know, it's a project that wants to tell a story that doesn't even I'm not even sure if it wants to be a pure game, or if it wants to be something like a novel or something like a movie. Or yeah, so this is where all the graphics come from. We try to tell stories, and you try to avoid words, especially written words, as much as possible.
I know it's kind of a dumb question, but like, was that a font that you had, or did you actually just draw the letters to create the font, if you will?
There is a font that is used a lot in the game, and it's a free font. And still for the main title, I looked at different fonts that are similar and try to take from them what I liked and what not. So yeah, and it's funny because it's fake Cyrillic, so it even has like some people told us that it is wrong, but yeah, that's a question of perspective. I think with 95% of people, that's acceptable that it's written wrong, but therefore resembling our letters, like your letters.
The only reason we bring that up is that Thomas was trying to translate it from French into English using Google Translate, the phone app. It takes a picture and it couldn't recognize it. That's why I was like, did you make the font?
So it is funny because it's a French word, but then some of the letters are backwards, you know, and different. And so it's like, you know, trying to use the phone to do the translate. It was a lot of fun trying to figure that out.
Funny. But that's like sometimes you're surprised how stories end up, you know, like we start with that game that has colors, and then at some point we try to write words on it, and at some point it becomes fake Russian, and then two Americans buy the French version of it, and like so yeah, the story has quite some corners. Funny. Okay.
It's great. The design of that game is great. That doesn't matter, right? You know,
Yeah.
you can play the game without knowing exactly that you're putting in nuclear waste or a tire.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you
Like there are special abilities, but the game is so short that it's no problem if you fail once, or like, oh, it worked a different way. Okay, I didn't read it, but now I know. So but still we wrote the special ability effects on the cards, but most people won't make use of it, and it's more of a graphical element. That's a surprising outcome. Yeah, but it's okay. I wouldn't want to have it any different right now.
With that game, as well as Houston, I noticed that I could play the game by myself. So he was in the shower, and I was like, I'm going to play Kitchen Unleashed by myself. You know, tell me about the fact that your games are actually for less people than more people. Because like when you talk about Mafia or Werewolf, we play that with parties of like 10, 11, 12 people, you know, and you're looking at games that are for smaller units of individuals. So, you know what I mean? What was your thought process as far as like making games for smaller groups than larger groups?
Okay, starting with the thing that I thought at the very first moment, solo players. These are people that I totally didn't even had in mind when I designed Soviet Kitchen. It was just that the game was basically finished, and we recognized that it would be so easy to offer the game in a solo mode too, especially because I was prototyping a lot by myself. So a lot of especially when you work with an app, a lot of prototyping is not even the flow of the game, you know, but it's just make things not suck, like make bugs not appear and stuff like that. So therefore you play a lot by yourself anyways. So in Soviet Kitchen, just for myself, I built that solo mode, or like I made my programmers help me to play it solo. And then in the end, it was just there. So, but I didn't really expect people to play it solo. Like it just happened. So that's the first thing. Secondly, the werewolf game is of course nice to play with a lot of people, but the initial idea behind it was that I would also like to play it with less people. So it happened in my case more than once that we wanted to play this game, but we felt like, can we do it with 5? Oh, kind of not. It would suck probably. I don't know. One has to be the game master. So that's why we even started with the number of players in using We Have a Dolphin. And we might scale it up later. Like we might have maybe a 6 or 7 player expansion if people want it and if the game is a success and so forth. But to really focus to the lower counts was to us also a business case, kind of. And we hope that people see that like, oh, wow, I love these types of games. And now I can try to go for low player counts. And by the way, there's other great social deduction games for 2 or 3 too. Like right now on Kickstarter, there's Mantis Falls that looks amazing too. And Coop, for example, is also a great game for 3 players, but I would not exactly put it into the social deduction category. Yeah. So I don't know, Soviet Kitchen ended up being very flexible in the player count. And that's super lucky for us. Also economically, it sells quite well because of that too. And but it is something that I'm going to respect in my future designs, being that the app might allow us to be more flexible with player numbers. But back then it was just something that happened.
From the Kickstarter on Soviet Kitchen Unleashed to sales now, how is the percentage? I mean, are you seeing a lot of sales now versus how much you raised in the Kickstarter?
So Soviet Kitchen was our first Kickstarter project, and we knew that it was a learning thing. You know that it could even have failed, and we wouldn't have been very sad about it. We're also not the type of Kickstarter projects who, we don't work like until it's 100% perfect, but we just get it out there to get feedback. So we're always open to failure. And in the case of Soviet Kitchen, the Kickstarter is, looking back from it now, is not very significant for the income that we made, but it was, of course, incremental to spread the word. But the game is really going quite well. So there's like a handful of countries that are interested in selling the game. France was the first, but we're having contracts with Spain. We're having contracts with Brazil. We had a contract with a US American publisher, but it unfortunately, in the week that we wanted to sign it, the whole Corona thing came up. So there's no exact plans to bring it to the US, but I think it's still likely. There's also a future project coming out of it with a partner publisher of a kind of a similar game that I cannot talk too much about, but it's also a color mixing game for families. So yeah, I think Soviet Kitchen was a super lucky first game. Like it works much better than I could have anticipated, and it works because of reasons that I didn't even see when I made it. So that was luck. That was also a lot of luck, and yeah, we cannot live from what we did with Soviet Kitchen yet, but for such a small game, it's surprising how much money we got onto our account. Yeah.
Enough for you to develop a second game, or at least.
Yeah. And now we have all these contacts, now people are asking us to send them the game too, and they want to see if it's the same as Soviet Kitchen. And I can tell you, economically, it would have been smarter to make a game that is a sequel or something. But we are right now in the process where we want to prove to people that the phone is more like can do a lot of things. So Soviet Kitchen is very different from Houston, and the next game will again be like not be the same thing. It's going to break the laws of board games again in yet another dimension. And I hope I don't want to be that guy that makes these color mixing games,
Also with Hybr, you have the app studio you can work with other developers and designers as well, right? You have that relationship available. So if somebody else out there has a really great idea for an app-based game, they could reach out for development.
For a funny reason, I didn't feel like there's so many great ideas out there, despite me having quite a few of those which I think could be something. So this is also a reason to make games. So we are hoping that once we start making innovative games with apps, that people start to see how much potential there is, and maybe that they come back to us and do it with us, because we have a lot of experience with it. Well, a lot of experience is a big word for being in a second game, but basically more than most of the others. So and it's growing. Yeah, so that's a business case that we're and it's a project that we would love to work more on, but it doesn't happen a lot yet. But yeah, there's one project in the making that is quite close to Soviet Kitchen, and where we are going to make the app. So basically we can take that too. Yeah, the app development thing is also something that we do now. Yep. And I don't know what would have happened without Corona. There's been quite some interesting projects going on, people asking a lot, but it was all a bit silenced with the Corona situation.
So how big is your team? So when you talked about, you're able to talk directly to your app developers because they're in-house, you guys are together. Who's on your team? Kind of tell me through the process. Do you start with an idea and then take it to your team? Kind of how does the game kind of start from a concept to an actual prototype? So,
we did this only twice until now, basically. So things are still developing a lot. But so I think the archetype of project development would be in my free time, I developed some ideas and I had this vision of something that could work. And then there's that point when I have to present that to my colleagues. Maybe for example, in August, I'm planning to pitch 3 different games for my colleagues. And then we will discuss until we made a choice on which of the 3 projects is going to be the next one. So this is the start. And once we decided for one thing, in the case of Soviet Kitchen, there wasn't even a choice. It was just like, yeah, let's do this. I have this idea about color mixing. We didn't have a plan, but so the first step was skipped. And then I will ask my developers to make a first prototype that only inherits the essential plot twist that comes with the app. You know, like in Solid Kitchen, there was like showing 2 colors, and then a new color appears on the screen. That was the first prototype. In Houston, we have a Dolphin. It was we worked with QR codes before we had the image detection, and and yeah, then a lot of things happen like synchronously, like parallelly. Yes, that's a great word. It's not hard to speak. My colleague Milena. Okay, so talking to the people as well. So there's me, and I'm designer, and I was illustrating until now, but actually I want to stop illustrating to have more time for other parts of the company. And then there's Milena, and Milena is our businesswoman. She is making all the accounting stuff, and she's also she's responsible for the editorial stuff. So she's making the rulebook. I'm helping her, but she's the one who says like, now it's done, or we need to alter it. And she's making a lot of the B2B communication, like finding the right production partners, finding the partners for different countries and so forth. And then we have 2 programmers actually, which we could allow ourselves to have because we are funded. We are a European funded project because we make this innovation. We claim to make object tracking a reality on the board game. So our first games didn't even have object tracking, which would be that you can follow miniatures basically with the phone. But this is where we want to head to. So this was funded, and that's why we could afford 2 developers. And one is basically the so-called front-end developer. So he's making everything that you will see. He's also good with animations. He's good with fonts. He will integrate sound effects and so forth. And then there's one developer, and he's only there to develop the algorithms that are complex in the background, especially like, you know, that the faces of the astronauts are recognized and then trigger that the phone knows, oh yeah, that was this one. This is the work of one developer. And now he's already working on future projects, on future technologies that would help us in future projects. Okay, one more sentence concerning the process. So yeah, we give the project, like I give a task to my developers, and we make the very first prototype, and it's super ugly as it's supposed to be. And then we just sit down and play. And then it usually becomes obvious that I'm not a genius and that things really suck. And then my colleagues have to repair my game design. So it's really like I'm usually the one who has like the power to push forward, but my colleagues have the power to keep us from doing horrible stuff. So this is the iteration that I'm usually making, and they're usually feedbacking, and this goes back and forth for a year or maybe even longer in the future. And then in the end, the game is at one point we say, okay, I think the game is as good as it gets, or working longer on it wouldn't be an economic thing to do. So yeah. And the strangest thing about the process is that I draw all the time meanwhile, but this is supposed to change because I don't think it's very efficiently. I drew a lot of mafiosi guys for Houston. We have a Dolphin because we thought it's going to be a mafia game, and I like these drawings a lot, but they're totally wasted now because then we talked to our potential customers and they said, "Hey, why not space? That would be cooler." And we were like, "Okay, let's throw these drawings away." So yeah, that was totally yeah. So we learn from that to make arts later in the next project.
When did the Dolphin come in? Because at the beginning of the interview, you said the Dolphin didn't come in until much later. So when exactly did the Dolphin show up?
The game design as itself was done, and it had some mafiosi guys. Yep. And what I liked about the first theme was that actually the policeman, the agent, was the bad guy, and the mafia, like everyone was a mafia family, and they were all good, and they had a halo, all of the characters, but the agent, he was the bad guy because he was hurting the family. Anyways, so we talked to our fans, and they were not really interested in the mafia thing. I think it's just it was just used too much probably, and so we came to the conclusion that fantasy would probably work better because of the idea that a spaceship is like a tight place where you cannot go away, just like a social deduction table. You know, like people come together and they have to work this out, and it hurts, but there's no way around it. And I think this is a great source of any conflict. So this is why we went to why we transformed everything into a space station. But we were not sure yet about who's going to be the traitor. So even though we had the spaceship already, and even like the stars background and stuff, we were guessing it would be astronauts who have battled there. It took us some iterations to come to the conclusion that it must have been a dolphin who sabotaged the spaceship. And it came from a story. Okay, this is a really weird story. It came because I read a story about the dolphin Peter, who was heartbroken by a trainer from the NASA. Because in Florida, the NASA had kind of headquarters where they were training dolphins to, basically they tried to learn how to communicate with aliens by trying to communicate with aliens. It's a true story. So there was that trainer, and she was a woman, and she had a male dolphin that she was working with. And she even made it that this dolphin was making different sounds that dolphins don't even do. So he was even starting to develop a very shallow type of language to communicate with humans. So in this sense, the project was successful, but the problem was that this dolphin fell heavily in love with that woman. And there's even rumors that they had like sexual encounters and stuff. It's a super weird story. So anyways, the NASA had to break the project at some point. It was over. I don't know if it has anything to do with people showing up and saying that it's not okay to treat dolphins in that really strange way. So it was a horrible thing that they did. And Peter went into some kind of dolphin retirement place, and he was heartbroken and died from it. Like, I don't know if it's true, but that's exactly what stands in this article. I will give you a link. You can attach it. It's about the heartbroken dolphin Peter. And the article leaves no doubt about it. He just says he died because he was heartbroken. Like, he sank to the ground of his pool and died. Yeah, that's why. So
it has nothing to do with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
On a different day, I would have told you a different story. But this was actually the initial way that we had the connection between NASA and Dolphin. And originally, the astronauts were all NASA astronauts too, and not undefined astronauts. But of course, I read the Hitchhiker books. I love them. I'm a Douglas Adams fan, and so I felt like it all made sense. Like, you know, the real story of NASA and what Douglas Adams had brought up, it even fits together in a time frame, because the one thing happened in the 70s, and then 78, the world was blown up. So. Yeah, we had different theories. Was it the dolphins all along that even made the Earth explode? Or was it only dolphins that go on a revenge tour into space? So there's different visions that go even deeper than what the game tells you. Yeah, and we didn't have time to all tell you this, but there's a lot of, how do you say, there's a lot of background ideas. Yeah.
So, okay. So one other thing that Ezra he tweeted at us and alluded to was where Captain Igloo's name came from.
Oh yeah.
What is that?
Okay, maybe I find a picture of this company from Germany, which has a funny name. Just 2 seconds. Okay, here it is. So there's this guy, and it's quite bright, but you can see a captain, I guess. And even this, now you can see him. So this guy, he's the one face in Germany that you connect to fish fingers, and he's called Captain Igloo. So we wanted to have him. We wanted to have a Captain Igloo, but then also make it an international thing. So it became Captain Igloo. And it sounded as if someone was very unfortunate with his family, that might be his name. So we stick with it.
We thought that the captain really held the ship together and it was a reference to Elmer's glue.
Yeah, it's. I think it's. I really like to make. I really like to make like these story snippets or these ideas, and they don't quite fit, but they leave a gap for interpretation. So your interpretation is just as true as the origin. It's just whatever people make from it. I hope there's more aspects of the game where this takes place, that people have an idea of what it all means.
I don't want to cut this short, but I have to go. So I would love to have you back on another time to talk about more games and game number 3.
Yeah, and also just some of the aspects of like making a game in Europe, what it's like to get funded in Europe. When you talk about European funding, that was, that's something that we don't necessarily have here in the United States. You have to get private funding from corporations, but
at the same time, it's for us, it's really hard to get a foot into the US American market. So that's also a reason why I'm happy to talk with you. But your questions were very interesting. I thought it was more about like giving you a game summary and talk about why the game is so great. But you were asking stuff that made me talk a little more from my convoluted background.
Yeah, your experience. It's not a convoluted background. It's called experience.
Oh, that's the word. Yeah, that was just a language thing. I didn't know the word. Yeah, no, it was great to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So thank you.
Wherever you're going, enjoy. Have a great Sunday. Have a great Sunday ahead of you. I will go to bed.
Yes.
I'm going to go to work.
Oh, on Sundays?
Yeah.
Oh, that's mean. Sorry.
It is mean.
Actually, I have to finish some drawings too, actually. So I'm drinking the Radler now to make it easier to work after the interview.
Yeah, I know how that feels.
Yeah. Welcome to every night. All right.
But
so,
Ando, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the Dolphin story. I will never forget that now.
No, I didn't make it up. It sounds as crazy as the stuff that we make, but it has a source, I'm just retelling it. Sorry.
Anchovies in the floppy disk.
Yep. What are you gonna do?
Yes.
And that is going to do it for this episode of the Untitled Podcast. That was a fun interview with Ando.
I want to talk to him a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more to kind of dive into. I had to leave. Literally, I had to run out of here after that interview to go to a call time.
But I would like to talk to him a little bit more about designing Euro games, and I think it's interesting something that he said about getting funding. And so just kind of do the comparison between what it is to create a game here and get funding. When I say that,
yes,
look for funds, how to get development funds in the U.S. versus is that something that because you are European, just like with my friends not my friends in Poland, but filmmakers that I went to school with who work now in Poland, they're like, I can just go back to Europe and get money to make movies. Just ask the government and be like, hey, can I have some money? Yeah,
there was an Axiom open source camera that was a thing for a while. I backed it on Kickstarter, where they got funding from the EU because it was, kind of building that technology of, open source technology to basically further what ended up being a completely useless, worthless product.
But I bet you the EU probably owns that patent.
I don't know how that works.
Me neither. And it would be interesting to talk to Ando about it and see what that's about. But that's for another day.
That is for another day.
And so is the rest of this podcast.
Yeah. What?
I don't know. That made no sense. Much like the beginning of this podcast.
So we're ending as well as we started.
Wrap it up.
This reminds me of that quote from Billy Madison, where I don't remember the quote, but it was pointless and useless. That's about it. We are all dumber for having sat through this.
I think that's the inspirational poster. I think that's meetings. We're all dumber for having to sat through this.
Meetings. None of us is as dumb as all of us.
No, that's right.
All right, so that's it. Goodbye.